All right, here we are, Chris. Episode 4 of the 6 Scale Scavengers. We've done it.
Numero quattro. We've done it. Yeah, it's good. Good to get back on the mic and talk some Hot Toys.
Yeah, it's been about 3 weeks since recording. I had some travel last week down, unfortunately, into the path of Hurricane Florence in North Carolina for work last week. And the last couple days, my fearless co-host here is feeling a little bit under the weather, so we figured let's wait a little bit. We'll get our smooth sounding voices here back up to the standard that we've set for ourselves 3 episodes in. And yeah, we got a good show on tap for episode 4, Chris. We got some figure news to talk about. Well, maybe not some new figure news to talk about, but some other stuff. Definitely plenty to cover there. We have some topics to cover. It was inevitable, Chris, that our acquisition section's going to be very light this week, which is fine.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, which is understandable. We can't keep buying several figures every week, or otherwise we'd go broke. And we'll talk a little bit about budget setting and some things that we've done that have helped us, and hopefully maybe that will benefit others. And finally, because I'm a good host this week, Chris, or I should say I'm a good host this episode, Chris, we're going to let everybody know right up front what our feature figure review is going to be, which is going to be Anakin Skywalker, MMS 337?
437.
437. Who put a question mark on the teleprompter? Ron Burgundy. Anyways, dating myself there. So looking forward to that. I've got the figure sitting on my desk here, and I know our good friend Mark Pearson is eagerly anticipating our audio review. I think I was talking to him the other day, and he said he's probably looked at more YouTube reviews for that figure and look at written reviews than he can count. So Mark, we're going to give you one more because you've been such a good friend and a good listener. So Chris, not only, obviously this is a Hot Toys podcast. We focus on Star Wars and Marvel. I just got to get that out of the way every time we talk. Got some pretty big news in the MCU and the Star Wars universe. I think the one I want to talk about first, we got a Captain Marvel trailer that just dropped. As of recording, it just dropped yesterday. Brie Larson brought it with her to Good Morning America over here stateside. And what do you think, Chris?
Well, it was really tough to figure out what we were going to get with this trailer. And man, I don't know. I'm a Mary Marvelite. I'm a dedicated MCU fan, and man, that trailer gave me chills. I can't wait to see it. Looking forward to all the little things that they drop in the months to come. But yeah, I'm thinking casting Brie Larson as Captain Marvel was spot on. And the fact that we're getting the helmet and the mohawk is just, I couldn't ask for more.
So, I think we talked several months ago, and I had a hunch that maybe this is going to be kind of, they're both the captain, but this could be the new Captain America in this, next phase. I think phase 4 of the MCU. And I admittedly have kind of gone back and look at probably more of the most recent comics they've done in the last decade or so from Marvel Comics, and just trying to figure out, know a little bit more about the character. I still don't feel like I understand completely what her powers are. It seems like she's kind of it's Kree based, and it's Captain Marvel, and there's some speculation maybe that's who Jude Law is playing, but nobody will say. So there's enough mystery and intrigue about this, and I think having read through a couple of different comic runs that they've done for Captain Marvel and Carol Danvers, it'll be interesting to see how they put the MCU spin on it. And as a fellow MCU fanboy, Chris, I'm gonna say that they're probably gonna take the best of all the different origin stories for Carol Danvers and make the best one. And I think that's what Marvel Studios does best.
No, I agree completely on that point. Yeah, I think they're taking elements from one of the latest comic book runs, from a few years ago when they kind of revamped her to some extent. She's taken on many different iterations from the 70s all the way up until now, different names, different levels of power, all sorts of interesting and questionable story choices and stuff like that. But no, I think that's the way they're going to go. But they've really set it up for us to have a hard time speculating on exactly how the movie's going to play out.
I thought they set the stage well when she just dropped right into a blockbuster video, and that's, if that doesn't say 90s, early 2000s, I don't know what does.
No, that part was awesome. My wife got a kick out of it. She used to work at Blockbuster back in college, and she was digging that vibe. So I'm definitely looking forward to the de-aging to Samuel L. Jackson, and Coulson looks just simply amazing, and I think this movie is going to get us into that, get us geared up for Avengers 4 and kind of set the stage of what's to come post Avengers 4, with Captain Marvel really leading the Avengers potentially, and more movies and team ups to come. And I mean, I can pretty much guarantee we're going to get that figure in Hot Toys form, hoping that we get multiple head sculpts, maybe different suits. Who knows? I can see the Kree-based suit potentially being an exclusive, just kind of theories. And then, maybe we get Ronan, maybe we get Korath. I don't know. I mean, maybe we get new versions of Nick Fury and Coulson. Possibilities are endless, but with Hot Toys, it's really tough to get a lot of those secondary characters out on the market.
Yeah, I think we can definitely count on a Captain Marvel one. I think that's a given. I think even some of the other movies they've done, I mean, I think it's going to probably maybe be as big as Black Panther was. And I mean, Black Panther has given us T'Challa, it's given us Black Panther, obviously, T'Chaka, it's given us Shuri and Killmonger. So maybe we don't even know who the antagonist in Captain Marvel is going to be, but count us both excited. And also, Captain Marvel, Chris, is going to be a day one pre-order for me, given.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Day one pre-order, baby. That wasn't the only recent news, and obviously we're huge Star Wars fans as well. And last Friday, the digital release of Solo dropped. And Chris, have you had a chance to watch it on? I know that we also have a podcast on the Brick City Blockade Star Wars podcast where we have our Cantina podcast where we just talk about whatever we feel about talking about Star Wars, and we kind of talked about Solo and that. But have you had the chance, Chris, to watch that yet?
Well, we discussed on the latest Cantina episode. We were working on the Audible book, so I finished the Audible book for Solo, and there's definitely some extra scenes in there that added to that story. But as far as the digital, I have downloaded it, but being the good husband I am, I'm holding off till this weekend to watch it with the wife. She has not seen it yet. So this past weekend was crazy. I'm just dying to watch it, though.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it was good to watch it again. And I think it's definitely, as I mentioned, I know our good friend Jim Roberge had said that, one of the points I'd make is like maybe the movie itself could, we all know it's well documented, some issues they had, and the director changed to Ron Howard. I feel like they saved it. They salvaged it. It's a good Star Wars movie. I think I like the concept of the movie even better, just based on all the novel tie-ins and all this other stuff that kind of went on. And as we mentioned on that Brick City podcast, we'd love to see a sequel for Solo. But if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, hopefully our listeners get a chance to. And, we've got a couple Hot Toys figures coming for that. I have Solo, the standard version, on pre-order. And I'm starting to kind of talk myself to, if they ever end up going to release the Chewbacca, Lando, Kira, I might have a discussion about adding those to my collection, but we shall see. So Chris, obviously this is our 4th episode here. And, I think we can't go too much further into the show and just say thank you to everybody that's been tuning in, eagerly looking at the statistics from Libsyn, and super appreciative just anybody that's willing to give us a shot and listen. And hopefully whether you're here for your fourth episode or maybe this is the first episode you've caught and you want to catch up with some of our back episodes, this is something that you and I would be talking about anyways. We're not experts about this. We're fans of Star Wars and Marvel, and obviously we love the line of hot toys for these properties, and we'd be probably having these conversations anyways.
That we would, sir. Yeah, I want to throw a shout out to faithful listener Jason Martin. He's been all over the various 6 scale Facebook groups, and he was asking me, he's like, man, I keep on checking my my podcast feed. I keep looking at 6 scale Scavengers to see if you guys drop another episode, and he's asking about YouTube stuff, and so I told him, we're going to kind of see how things roll and see how things grow and progress, and we'll see how things go, and just definitely want to thank Jason for checking in and giving us a shot.
Absolutely. So thank you, Jason. And so, Chris, let's transition over to news. And we only had, well, when we look at just Star Wars and Marvel, we only had one figure release in between our last recording, which is about 20 days ago or so. Seems odd to only have one release during that time period, but we had, right when we started this podcast up, Infinity War was kind of winding down. Star Wars had a bunch of releases, so it felt like, oh man, there's going to be tons of these all the time. And well, I think one of the best parts about this line, Chris, is the fact that sometimes you get some time to appreciate the figures you have in your collection. You can repose them, you can do all this other stuff, and you don't have to stress out and worry. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to drop like 365 figures in a given year. Well, it just doesn't happen. So, Chris, coinciding with the release of the Spider-Man game on PlayStation 4, you and I aren't much of gamers. I've got an Xbox One. My son, who's 6, almost 7, is a better gamer than I am at this point. So I haven't had a chance to play that game. I hear some pretty good things about it. But Hot Toys used that opportunity, release day, to drop the Spider-Punk, which they had teased. I believe it was at San Diego Comic-Con. They showed us that.
Yeah, they put it up there.
So that release is out there. It's up for pre-order. So that kind of falls, it's not really technically in the MCU. It's kind of in their video game line. We had the other release a month or two ago, right with San Diego Comic-Con, with kind of like the advanced suit from the PS4 game. So is it, I hate to use the word canon for MCU. So is it that it's kind of from like that Spider-Verse thing that I don't know a heck of a lot about. Long story short, I like Spider-Man as a character, but Chris, this isn't one that I'm going to be going for.
No, I mean, the execution of the figure, I think, looks amazing. He's got a bulkier build, and he's rocking his jean vest and his spikes, and he's got the guitar. I mean, I think it's an interesting take on the character, but yeah, I'm not, like you said, I'm not a gamer. Don't got time for that. Definitely won't be. I won't be getting this one, but I'm glad that it's out there for the fans of the game, and it just, we'll see how well it sells, and that dictates whether or not there's going to be more releases like this. So that's my biggest thing is, getting something different out there to broaden, the range of figures.
We'll go on to, I guess we could call this early releases, Chris. I mean, and we got some firsthand knowledge about some of these because you got the emails from Sideshow on some of your pre-orders. So we got a couple of figures coming much earlier than expected here.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. I got the email from Sideshow saying that Killmonger was going to be arriving 2 to 4 months potentially early, could come as early as December. And originally, I think it was like March or February, March timeframe. Yeah, so looking forward to that. Wondering if Black Panther is going to come early. Also coming early is Infinity War Thor, way earlier than expected. Could even come next month. A lot of people on the groups very excited to get that email. And we'll see. I've got that one on payment plan, and it's one of those things we're learning as we go. When a figure comes early and you have it on payment plan, the payment plan still stays on the set dates that were originally in place, from what I believe. I haven't seen anything shift on my orders page, but that's what some of the other collectors had said. So they do give you the option to do the one payment plan once it becomes available. Again, we'll kind of cover that with under the budget area. It doesn't make more sense, for you financially to just do the one lump sum or spread it out over a couple months. So
yeah, some good stuff there. We actually had, and then, with some stuff coming early, it looks like some stuff coming late. I think you may have talked about it last time, Chris, but that Ant-Man and the Wasp diorama might be delayed.
Yeah, couple months.
Yeah, a couple months on that. It looks like Emperor Palpatine might be slightly delayed. That's kind of unfortunate. I know, because they just released the Royal Guard just released. A lot of people have that in hand. I'm starting to see some YouTube reviews of that. And so I think people are kind of probably want to have those, combined up in their on the shelves to display. That's a little disappointing. Obviously, we can't control what comes early and what comes late. We're just the consumers. But some exciting stuff. And we know firsthand that some of the people that are, I'll give a quick plug for our Facebook group at Six Scale Scavengers. It's relatively small at this point. Love seeing everybody kind of sharing their collections and whatnot. But we've got the Iron Man Mark IV with the gantry setup. That's been released. People have that in hand. That figure and setup looks phenomenal. Obviously, we talked about it before. It's going to be pricey. It's one of those things that if you've got the proper setup for it, it can be a real cornerstone of your collection, especially if you're an Iron Man fan.
Yeah, man, that takes up a pretty big footprint. And when it's all set up, you got them in there with, the gantry, simulating, taking the suit off or whatever. It really pops. And Stephen DeRose, he posted up his pics of his, and man, you got to pick and choose with these things, but I would have gone for that one if I could have, but I'll just admire it from afar.
That's one of the best. It's what we've said before too. Sometimes it's just you hope that one of your buddies or somebody close by gets a figure that you want, so you can kind of appreciate it when you go by their place, and you don't necessarily have to endure the cost of owning it yourself. So there's some good stuff there, Chris. I know that you also found some information about the Singapore. You found some more information about the Singapore Comic-Con and some of the stuff that Hot Toys had on display.
Yeah, I would definitely, if you have a chance, search the STGCC 2008 Singapore Comic-Con.
Or 2018?
2018, yeah, 2008.
The 2008 one was probably good too.
Yeah, right when Hot Toys started with Marvel. So there was some amazing picks. Hot Toys bring it. They had a huge booth, and they had all their current Hot Toys figures that are available. All the prototypes they showed at San Diego Comic-Con, all in their dioramas and everything. So some pretty cool stuff there. Definitely check it out. Give you some ideas on maybe some figure displays and such. So yeah, check it out.
Good stuff. All right, let's move over to acquisitions, and I guess we should get a little bit of a drum roll. One of us does have something new to add to their collection since the last episode. It's me. I added, and it's still going on now. I still can't believe that the Big Bad Toy Store, sales and discounts and stuff that they have, there's still quite a few number of good figures there. I mean, the figures that they're not necessarily new, but if you're just starting up your collection, I mean, you can't really bat an eyelash at some of these, the deals they have there. Well, I got my $125 credit back from getting the Finn figure, and it looked like when I was reading the fine print, I was thinking, I'm like, I'll just use it for a pre-order for a figure next year. But it said you had to use the credit within a year. And some of the figures I was looking at, I'm like, it's going to be kind of close. I don't want to give that money back to them. So I was like, all right, well, I'll look. And I happened to see that the BB-8 from The Last Jedi happened to be there and available. And I'm like, well, no money out of my pocket. I'll just use my credit for that. So lo and behold, I've got a new BB-8 droid in my collector case. And it's kind of interesting, Chris, to see the comparisons between the one that came with Jakku Ray and the one from Last Jedi. Technically, in canon, it's literally within a week of the, there's only like a week between episode 7 and episode 8, probably. The paint apps are very different, I would say, and I'm colorblind, so take that with a grain of salt. But the one from The Force Awakens looks very red to me. And the one from The Last Jedi looks a lot lighter red, potentially even a shade of orange. So maybe he got maybe Poe gave him a wax job when he got back, got beat up from Starkiller Base, that run they had there. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot more different accessories that are included with that than the other one. I have them displayed now with kind of the flame thumbs up from The Force Awakens, even though this is the Last Jedi version. I'm not going to split hairs about that. So, but it has a neat little black stand that you can, have. Again, say it again. I say it often. I don't put the batteries in my figures. So there is, I think, some cool light up features for the magnetic head that's on top. And I'm not going to do that. But, I think it retails for like $103. I think it's still available on Big Bad Toy Store and on Sideshow. I didn't think that was too bad.
Very cool. How do you have him? Who do you have him displayed next to?
Right now, he's on my Last Jedi shelf with Jedi Training Rey. And he's kind of warming up a spot for the Luke Skywalker I've got on the way from The Last Jedi. So.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah,
it's one of those things. I'm constantly changing up shelves, and it's one of the things I either have him displayed by character or by movie and stuff. It's a burden to bear as a collector.
Oh, it's so tough.
Obviously, that's all. Nothing else. No other pre-orders really have come up that have really piqued anybody's curiosity. You and I are kind of just keeping tabs on things that are out there on eBay, seeing if there's any deals to be had. There's no coupons that have been available lately. So sometimes it's really best if don't just get the urge to go buy something just because there's been a lull or something like that. Save your money. There'll be a better deal. There'll be a figure that you really want. And then, so one figure to add, no pre-orders. It is bound to happen, Chris.
I know. It is what it is. We'll see how things go for next time.
I think it's time we move on to our topic segment. And Chris, what did you want to cover this episode?
Well, just a quick little thing. I just wanted to talk about jumping on the figures that you really want when they're up for pre-order. Just because we've seen with a number of figures recently that if you don't do it, if you don't get them while they're available from Sideshow or Big Bad Toy Store or whatever retailer, you might be costing your wallet quite a bit more to pick up those figures. We reviewed Iron Man Mark V, the diecast, episode 1, I believe, right?
Yep, you're right.
Yeah. And then also another Iron Man figure that we both have, Mark VI diecast. So both of those, I've kind of been tracking the values of those, or the final sales values on eBay. And man, consistently, those are anywhere from $100 all the way up. I've seen some $350, double the price of what they were retail. And both of those were around $350 when new. So I'm thinking we're both, again, within, pretty new to this Hot Toys collecting thing. And I've missed out on a few that I wish I jumped on. I've got Yondu on my wait list still. And I know some people have had that order fulfilled. And I even checked their dates, and it's really close to the date that I had put him on wait list. And he's already commanding 20% plus above retail. It's just, I'm kind of kicking myself for not, locking him in when he was available. it's just tough. You just never know. When he was released, I think a lot of people were very, very pleased with that figure. And again, they start posting the reviews, start posting pictures, and you really see how good the figures are in the final form. So yeah, I'm just throwing this out there. Definitely, if you've got the finances to lock in a pre-order and you budget out accordingly, I would definitely go for it. Like the Mark IV with the gantry. I have a feeling that thing is. I mean, you're probably going to be looking at at least a couple $100 within a month or so of it being sold out, and yeah, you're going to get into bidding wars with a lot of collectors on eBay.
Yeah, I think it's usually, and I feel like we talked about it in one of the prior episodes, Chris, too, and it's like the for the not necessarily the secondary characters and stuff, but the ones that aren't super popular, and people are like, I'll wait and see what it looks like. I'm not ready to commit now. If I do the pre-order and then I see the final images and it's just not what I like, I'm out the deposit on it. Or if you're kind of a wait and see person, unfortunately, I've seen it happen. You had Star-Lord earlier this year, the Volume 2 version. You had it with Yondu. I feel like it happened with Spider-Man Homecoming, the advanced suit, a lot of different things. People have it in hand, and you said that hype machine starts kicking in, and people are like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" And then jealousy starts to kick in. You're like, I'm kicking myself? Why didn't I do that? So it's walking that fine line between knowing what you want to have in your collection. I think it's also important too to not necessarily fall into the hype. Just because there's a character out there that you might like that people are going absolutely crazy for, don't feel like, okay, everybody loves this, I got to get this in my collection too. If it doesn't fit with what you're looking for, then maybe you pass. And I know Yondu, I actually feel bad because I feel like I gave you advice at one point. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's going to be available out there. don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. And of course, a bad friend I am. But I know that you are kind of looking to assemble the Guardians team. So, that's something that does fit into your collection. Mm-hmm. For me, obviously, I love to see the line succeed. I want to see them release good figures. For me, as an outsider, I love the fact that the Yondu figure came out excellent, that people love it. I mean, it's just not a character that I would have gone for, but I can certainly appreciate it from afar, like we just talked about.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for me, I'm not going to, if I don't get Yondu, if the waitlist doesn't get fulfilled, I'm not going to be, I'm going to be bummed, but I'm not going to be going for the figure at whatever cost. It's going to be one of those figures that I just kind of put in the back of my mind, put on my wish list, and just continue to see if one drops at a reasonable price, not too high above what retail was. Yeah, I'm not going to be chasing the figures, but I just wanted to see what the value of those Iron Man figures were, because I bought both of them, and they're not enough above retail for me to consider passing them along and putting that money back into the collection. I just haven't had enough time with them. But yeah, it's one of those things like you had with your Mark 47. It's commanding 2.5, almost 3 times what it was retail. It's like, it's tough to hold on to something like that.
Yeah, especially too obviously I love Iron Man. It's a phenomenal figure. Do I have a little bit of regret getting rid of it? Yeah, a little bit, but I was able to add a lot more cooler stuff to my collection as a result. So as to me, it's a net win. So Chris, I guess what I want to move on to now is kind of what we wanted, if we have a air quotes main topic, but talking about some of this budgeting stuff. And I thought you made a great point a little bit ago that, we're still learning. I mean, there's things that come up, and yeah, it's exciting to get an email to say, hey, you've got a figure coming early, and then reality sets in. You're like, crap, what am I going to do? They could have completely thrown off your plan. And I think that's from what I've seen in a lot of the collecting groups over the last year that I've really been dialed into, kind of the Hot Toys line is usually figure comes early, and people, either have it budgeted for and they just get super excited because, yes, I'm going to get the figure that I wanted early, or it comes later and you're like, all right, well, I'll be patient and I'll wait. But the ones that come early, and you said, it can wreak havoc on your budget, because if you're planning for the money to come out for those figures within certain months, and they say up front too that the dates are estimates and whatnot, but depending on the way that you budget, it could be a situation where you're going to end up paying maybe double what you expected to a month, maybe even triple. And those are the type of things too that I don't think there's really a good answer. I mean, we can kind of share what we've done so far, but that doesn't mean that it's maybe the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's an area that you just can't plan for. I mean, who knew all these Marvel figures were going to release early? A lot of people talking, well, that's the big line, and a lot of other lines are getting delayed or getting the orders canceled, and they're not even producing the line just because it just doesn't have enough backing. But I mean, you got to kind of look at it from a business point of view. If Marvel's what's bringing in the most money, yeah, I mean, they're going to kind of cater towards those figures. But anyway, no, going back to the budget, yeah, like I said, now I've got to reevaluate. I just got the email today saying that my Deadpool 2 figure, the funds are coming out of my account today. Just, so I've got to I kind of had that planned. It's just one of those things. I always have a little bit of extra cash, usually enough to cover one figure, set aside so that way I can plan for that. But otherwise, and also, I mean, I think Hella might be dropping early, just to throw that in there. And I've got her on pre-order, and I've got her on a one-time payment. So I'm just trying to anticipate that payment. That's why I'm not really doing any pre-orders right now, just planning things out.
Yeah, so the one thing that I've found helpful too is I think I've talked about it in a prior episode. I almost have like a rolling 12-month in advance budget. So what I do is I'm planning. It's kind of weird because I'm planning in advance to set money aside each month. And then what it is, so within that time frame, I know like it equates to what X number of figures or whatever it is. And then what I do as well is, again, you've kind of convinced me, Chris, to start these, the payment plans, which makes it a little bit easier to budget out, and you can spread out the cost. And it also helps I have a couple months coming up where I don't have any payments at all. And then all of a sudden I've got a few figures on pre-order. What I've found is that by doing that, obviously, because I've budgeted, I'm not going to overextend myself. It's not going to create a situation where I'm like frantically like, oh my God, I don't have the money to do this. It's not that. It's more of like, if something is late or early, it isn't as crushing to the way that I have things set up just because of that. And, I don't know if that means it's the best way. So, I mean, it's basically, I have a spreadsheet in Excel. I'm a data head. I love Excel. What I do is I set the money aside that I'm going to set aside for that month. I plug it in, and then, it's as a credit. And then if something comes in and I have a planned payment plan to come in, or final shipping of a figure, that's a negative. And I kind of keep a running balance. So over the course of the next 12 months, I kind of know like, okay, this is what I've set aside. This is what I can expect. And then it also lets me know too, like a dollar amount to say like, okay, if a figure is going to drop within this date range, basically, this is the amount of money that I would technically have set aside, within my budget to stay within reason to say, yeah, this is something I can do. Like right now, I may be able to add like a figure and a half between like now and next October that would release and be out there. But then as I go each month after that, then it allows me, each that I have set aside each month will allow me to, to do that. So is that like the most exciting topic we could ever come up with? I don't know. Probably not. I'm sure there's some people like that are just like falling asleep with their earbuds in right now. But, I think it's important. I mean, this is not this is an expensive hobby, and I think that's why we can't stress it enough to make good decisions, stay within your means, and really enjoy the figures, because I see it all the time. It's unfortunate that, situations arise where you've got a financial crisis, and I hate to see people have to sell parts of their collections for financial reasons. I mean, stuff comes up, obviously. We're both family first. If I needed to sell my collection tomorrow to help, something out, of course I'm going to do that. But, I think it's also, I hate to see people like take less than market value because they need to get things out quickly. And I don't know. It's part of life too, I guess.
Right. I agree there. It's tough. It's weird because I've definitely noticed a number of collectors selling off their collections recently on various Facebook groups and also on eBay. And it's, I don't know if it's just they're just done with the collection. I mean, the amazing figures that are all up for sale, and a lot of people saying I'm moving on from this stuff. But I don't know. For me, I'll just kind of step it back. When I first started, when I decided I was going to get into these, I decided I was going to sell off a lot of my modern Star Wars stuff, and I went crazy for a couple months just selling off stuff that's been sitting in totes in my basement for a decade. And I used all those funds to pick up the figures that I got, and basically trading the collection, kind of upgrading, a lot of these figures, good, nice, Hasbro 3¾ inch action figures. But I kind of get more out of these, the hot toys, and it's kind of figuring out that way to have a little bit more flexibility with the finances. We talk about it. We've both done it, purging, downsizing, liquidating to fund, maybe the things that we've become more passionate about. And you learn as a collector that it's just, I kind of got in this mentality a while back that it's like I just wanted everything. I wanted everything. I had no focus at all. And over the past couple of years, I've really, really focused in on the different areas of collecting that give me the most joy. So that's kind of my recommendation there, is really figure out what direction you want to go in. And then that way you can plan out the different figures and lines that you want to focus on, and that way you're not grabbing every figure that's released, because there's not a whole lot of people that can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. So, I mean, this is going to be something that we'll talk about often. This isn't just a one-time thing. And if anything, it's kind of reaffirming for ourselves to kind of, use a Porkins reference to stay on target.
Nice.
I have to, anytime we can mention Porkins, we gotta do that.
R.I.P.
All right. So, obviously, we've got our Facebook group. If anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to us, I think I found an email address for us too. I think it's 6scalescavengers@gmail.com. And if you ever, looking for, tips or advice, again, we're not experts. We're fans just like you are as listeners, and we're still learning. And I love learning from other people and knowing that I can't possibly know it all. And there's always more to know or to do. And I think that's what makes this collecting journey even more exciting. And I think it's fun to be able to talk about this, be transparent to a certain extent, show that, we're not out there just buying thousands of figures and spending money that we don't have, because that's certainly not the case here. I mean, and again, we're about to get into our future review of Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith. And as I've said before, I'll say it again, our reviews tend to be a little biased because we spend the money our hard-earned money on the figures that we want. Obviously, there's potential for us to be disappointed by them, but if I had a reason for wanting to add something to my collection, I'm probably going to say mostly good things about it, but I will nitpick where necessary.
Of course. Yeah, I think. And then the other point I wanted to put, this figure is we'll discuss releases and everything. But we're not necessarily going to be dropping the latest figures. It might work out that way here and there, but I think we're going to go back in the catalog and pull out, interesting figures here and there, and mix it up for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, even still, I mean, they may not be available on one of the big box stores or something, but you can probably, you can hunt on eBay. We haven't plugged our Hot Toys checklists that are available on brickcityblockade.com. We've got one for Marvel. We've got one for Star Wars. Try to make it easy for you to find things on either Amazon or eBay, or if it might still be available on Sideshow. So some of these older figures we may talk about in the future, you may still be able to acquire them for a reasonable cost. And, it's just another option out there as well. So, all right, Chris, let's get the drum roll. All right, so our feature figure this week is Anakin Skywalker, MMS 437 from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. This was pre-ordered, went way before you and I, well, not way before we started collecting, but as far as I can see, it looks like it was first announced back August 2017 is the best approximation that I can find. Obviously, this can't have been a day one pre-order because we weren't collecting back then, but and again, it's also hard to figure out exactly when this one dropped, because this is one that also dropped early. I think this was one that was supposed to come out over the summer, and I feel like it was available like in April or May in some capacity, and then it's kind of gone in and out of stock at Sideshow. And actually, when I ordered it, it was technically considered a pre-order, although people had bought it from Sideshow previously, but it then like shipped the next day. So anyways, this one retailed and still retailing for $235. There is another version of this out, Chris, and I think we talked about it. It was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. It's the Sith version of Anakin in the third act of that movie of the prequel trilogy, where he's obviously become Darth Vader. I purposely wanted this version because I feel like this is, the best version of Anakin. I feel like it's the truest. I feel like I still go back, Chris, and I watched that movie. I actually watched the duel again right before we recorded between him and Count Dooku. And Anakin was just a badass Jedi. I mean, whether he was one of the best starfighter pilots in the galaxy, or, he eventually becomes one of the best in the order with his lightsaber skills, he could have, had he stayed on the good path and not eventually become Darth Vader, I mean, he would have been considered probably the best Jedi. I mean, he would have surpassed Yoda.
Yeah, I think Anakin was headed that way if he decided to, but we all know he had some issues, and Palpatine tweaked those to his benefit, and he went down the dark side. But let's talk about this great looking figure, man.
Yeah, so I am so pumped to have added this to my collection. Obviously, overall, I think even one of our first episodes, I'd mentioned that it was some Hot Toy reviewers like top 5 figures of the year. I'm getting to the point, Chris, because I love my collection so much that it's hard to like go in and like rank your figures. It's almost like trying to rank your kids. I mean, you're just not going to do it.
It might be a little bit easier, but whatever.
So this one, I'll just kind of go through. We'll get to the figure here. So the box art, obviously, we've mentioned before the Star Wars box art. It's fairly bland. There's a good portrait of him on the cover. There's not much there. We've got the MMS 437. The portrait inside. So what happens is Hot Toys always puts like a insert cover over where the plastic is. It's another portrait of the figure, but this is, both of them are always there. Actually, except for the Black Widow figure we talked about last time. That's a bad example on the cover art. But this is the figure, and they have it posed, and it's got great lighting and stuff. I mean, this is something that, if you wanted to turn into a poster and put a frame on it, I mean, it's that good. And then obviously this one came loaded with goodies for what I would kind of consider kind of an air quotes standard figure. Came with his Jedi robe, came with a lightsaber arm that you can put in to have the lightsaber blue, put the batteries in. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I just don't do that. So I still have mine in the plastic tray. He's got his right arm that doesn't have his glove on it. So you have which I think the best part you see it is maybe at the end of Attack of the Clones, where you see his robotic hand. That's there. You can put that on. It's got plenty of hands at whatever pose you want to do. Obviously, it comes with his Skywalker lightsaber. Also comes with Count Dooku's lightsaber, which the detail, it's just in general on this whole figure and all the accessories and stuff. I mean, it is spot on incredible. There's not much to say there. I mean, all the things that you get with this one, I feel like it's a great value.
Yeah, man. I think, the fact that it comes with the robe and two lightsabers, and I'm looking at the pictures now, and hadn't really focused in on this figure that much until now. Man, it is like he walked right off the screen.
So this one obviously has sculpted hair. So in Revenge of the Sith, he's not a Padawan anymore. He's able to grow his hair out. So that's done super well. It actually has some of it kind of overhanging over his shoulder. I mean, not his shoulder, hair hanging over his forehead. That's done well. It looks very sturdy. The likeness and the paint app of everything of Hayden Christensen's, it's probably one of the best head sculpts that I've seen them do. Kind of glancing around my collection real quick, and it's easily in the top 5. It might be even higher than that. I mean, it is just, they keep getting better and better. I think with all these newer releases, I think that's kind of the level of expertise and craftsmanship I think we're going to come to expect going forward.
Yeah, the sculptors and creators for the head sculpts, I follow them on Instagram, and it's awesome seeing them at work and going through the process and just really nailing the likenesses and even the coloring of the skin tones. And I like how he's got this little scowl, kind of, he's crinkling his forehead a little bit and really focusing in. It just really gives it that extra element to the face there, where some of the figures in the past, they're just kind of straightforward, no real expression. But really, really liking this head sculpt, man.
Yeah, I'd say determined is a good adjective for that.
Yeah.
The whole Jedi outfit with the different shades of brown in his outfit. I mean, this is one that's hard to pull off, and a lot of, like we talked a little bit ago with, like, the 3 3/4 scale, 6-inch scale with like the Black Series lines and stuff. I feel like this is always something really hard for them to do with those materials, but obviously soft goods and hot toys. This thing is just incredible. The level of detail, the texture in his Jedi robes, the outer tunic where it's like pleather. I mean, but it's meant to be leather, obviously. Some hot toy collectors have concerns long term about how well that's going to hold up. Is it going to flake and all that other stuff? I'm not as concerned about that. I mean, it was something that I think I had a little bit in the back of my mind and when getting the figure, but I have my figures on display. I don't really repose them all that much. They're under glass. The temperature of my house is usually pretty steady. I'm not worried about it being too hot or too cold. So if I take good care of it, it should last long in the long term. But if it doesn't, hopefully I enjoy it for the time that I do own it. Just the littlest details, the belt, the boots. I thought it was weird at first where his gloved hand, his Jedi tunic is kind of underneath the glove. And I was like, I don't remember that being in the film, but I went back, Chris, I looked at the scenes from the film, and that's exactly how it is. So it does look weird to have one arm, with a loose hanging robe, in his left hand, but the right hand, it feels like the his sleeve is tucked under the glove. Well, that's what George Lucas signed off on. So yeah, obviously that's what Hot Toys did for the figure release.
They really take, the aesthetic of the character and nail it. I think it's those details that really make it stand apart. And you were talking about the pleather situation, the material. I think, I don't know for sure, but I would think that Hot Toys is constantly looking for best material that they can. A lot of the time they learn from their mistakes. You hope that they learn from their mistakes and use a material that is holds up over time. I'm just looking at this tunic, and the stitching and everything is just spot on as far as size appropriate. Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely nailed it. And having the Jedi robes like this, I mean, look at the other Jedi that they've made. It just opens up the possibilities to have other characters and yeah.
I mean, they could do, I would assume at some point they're going to do a Mace Windu. I mean, that
Right.
would just be a
Yeah,
given.
that was on top of my mind.
Some of the other, like the Plo Koons and stuff like that, I don't know if they'll get that deep. But
that's more like sideshow.
Yeah, it's a good point. But my final point about this overall, whatever our rating scale is, I feel like it changed every single time. 2 thumbs up. This one doesn't have anything that I am going to give it a demerit for whatsoever. Not to say it's the perfect figure. I can't find any faults with it, Chris. I mean, I think initially I wasn't something that I had planned on adding to my collection. I know I talked about it when you and I have talked on the Cantina on the Brick City Blockade, that I was actually a little influenced by reading Thrawn Alliances and seeing the interactions between Anakin Skywalker and obviously Thrawn. Thrawn's just one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars at this point. I hope he gets into a feature film at some point, or maybe gets his own standalone film. I think that'd be even better. So that, and then just, I have an appreciation for the prequels. I know they're not for everybody, but interestingly enough, my final point, Chris, for Anakin is I didn't realize how tall Hayden Christensen was, at least in comparison to Mark Hamill. So the shelf that I have him on, he's next to my Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. And Anakin is almost like a half head taller than Mark Hamill is. And it's funny. Like, obviously, Luke didn't get any height from his father.
Poor guy.
But yeah, he's big, he's imposing, he looks like a badass Jedi. I mean, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. I mean, it makes sense with the height of Vader. Obviously the suit emphasizes or, bumps up that height, but very cool. Yeah, I think if I was a Star Wars Hot Toys collector, this one might be on my list, but I'm gonna continue to stay true to my Marvel only focus.
Don't worry, next time you're over my place, you can take a look at it.
Heck yeah, man.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up our feature review. And obviously, as always, we're super thankful of everybody tuning in. And one of the best ways to help this little podcast grow is to, share with a friend. And it helps get more exposure out there for us, increases the downloads, the ratings or reviews on places like Apple Podcasts. I mean, those certainly help. We're just super grateful for that. I mean, we're doing this because it's fun. We like talking about it. And I think to me, it's very humbling to think that other people out there enjoy our inherent rambling about this line.
It makes it all worth it, man.
All right, so let's head over to plug time. We'll keep it fairly brief. Chris, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Vintage Viewport on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jedi Scavenger SW. Make sure you follow Six Scale Scavengers on Instagram as well. And I just mentioned we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Libsyn. You can find our RSS feed on Libsyn that you can put into your podcatcher of choice for podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify, I think. I could be wrong on one of those. But anyways, so obviously you're listening to it now, but there's other ways you can find, and hopefully we can please Apple users and also Android users and whoever else. We just love the fact that you're listening to us, and we appreciate it. So this wraps up episode 4 of the Six Scale Scavengers. For Christopher James Leddy, this is Bryan Fontaine. I want to thank you for listening. And as we always say, may the force be with you.
Always.